Guthrie, Oklahoma, 1896. The town of Guthrie, located in Logan County, is the territorial capital of Oklahoma Territory. In the latter part of April, Guthrie would turn 7 years old. But even though the town was young, it was impressive. Large and ornate brick buildings dominate the downtown area, and you can still see them today. At the beginning of the nomination form for the National Register of Historic Places, the town is aptly described. Guthrie is something of a monument to Victorian architecture, both in its business buildings and in its residences. The business blocks are of well-cut, brownish sandstone and dark red brick. Most feature cupolas, balconies, ornamented roof cornices, and other features of the period. The buildings shown would have already been built in 1896. The big event in Guthrie's Wild West history in 1896 was the prison escape of famed outlaw Bill Doolin and Dynamite Dick that took place on the night of July the 5th. The jailbreak made national headlines, but by the end of the year, both outlaws would be killed by lawmen. But this story is not about a famous outlaw. It does not take place in a grand brick Victorian building. It's the tragic tale of a prostitute who died in a small shack near the railroad tracks and was hastily buried in a pauper's grave. From newspaper articles, we can piece together what happened to her and learn how her lingering spirit terrified the citizens of Guthrie. From the weekly Oklahoma State Capitol, Guthrie, Oklahoma, April 6, 1896. Cocaine killed her. Ella Meyers found dead in bed in Ella Houston's place. Yesterday morning, Ella Meyers, an inmate of Ella Houston's on the railroad right-of-way, was found dead in bed. The discovery was made by a man who was asleep with her. It seems that the night before, her male companion, being a morphine fiend himself, had procured some morphine and also borrowed a hypodermic syringe of a doctor, his own being broken, and gave the girl a shot in the arm, in the thigh, and in the left side. It is also stated that the two prepared cocaine in some form and smoked it. In the morning when the man awoke, his companion, to all intents and purposes, was dead. The city officers were notified, and the doctor pronounced the girl dead. In the afternoon at 5 o'clock, County Commissioner Stapleton ordered the body buried at the county's expense, and a couple of colored men took the corpse in a delivery wagon to the sandy ground this side of the Cimarron Bridge and buried it in the pauper's grave. One solitary hack of her sister companions followed the remains to the grave. The unfortunate was a handsome blonde of 18, tall and stately. She came to this city a prisoner from the Osage country, charged with having consorted with outlaws, and was lodged in the federal jail. After many months' imprisonment, when nothing could be found out through her, she was discharged. She is said to have a brother in Mulhall and a stepmother somewhere in Colorado. The death of Ella Meyers is mentioned again a couple of days later. From the Guthrie Daily Leader, Guthrie, Oklahoma, April 8, 1896. Ella Meyers, an inmate of Ella Houston's place on the Santa Fe right-of-way, was found dead in bed Sunday morning. Her death was due to an overdose of cocaine. From these two articles, we learn a little bit about Ella Meyers' life history, that she came to Guthrie as a prisoner, a woman who consorted with outlaws, and was finally released because she would not give the authorities any information concerning the outlaws she knew. She was 18 years old and beautiful, and worked as a prostitute for Ella Houston. Ella Houston's place was located somewhere on the Santa Fe Railroad right-of-way. From this map of Guthrie, made in December of 1895, we can see that the Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe Railroad cuts through the town, going northeast. Ella Houston's brothel lay somewhere close to the railroad. Ella Meyers' death was attributed to drug use, specifically morphine and cocaine. Prostitutes in Guthrie were fond of cocaine. A newspaper article in May of 1896 refers to 2 prostitutes habitually using the drug. Morphine use was also very common in the American West. It was used for a variety of ailments, was very addictive, and was deadly if the dose was too large. Ella Meyers was said to have been injected with morphine in the arm, in the thigh, and in the left side, and that was before using cocaine. We also learn that she was buried hastily in a pauper's grave, but that her burial was attended by her fellow prostitutes. It wouldn't be long after Ella's death and burial that people in town felt that something was wrong about the whole ordeal, and that things may not have been as simple as previously thought. From the Guthrie Daily Leader, Guthrie, Oklahoma, April 8, 1896. Was she buried alive? Strange and hurried burial of a fallen woman. The strange and sudden death of the Cyprian, Ella Meyers, who was found dead in a bagnio on the Santa Fe right-of-way Sunday morning, together with her hurried burial, is causing much comment, and an investigation may follow. No one knows positively what caused the woman's death, and no inquest was held over the remains. It seems that within a few hours after the woman's supposed death, the body was thrown into a box, and by order of Commissioner Stapleton was hauled to the pauper burial ground. 2 reputable physicians asserted yesterday that the girl was buried alive. A speedy investigation is needed here. The article was picked up and shared by newspapers in nearby Perry, Oklahoma. The article refers to Ella Meyers being a Cyprian, which was a more refined way of saying prostitute. The accusation that she had been buried alive was chilling, and the involvement of Commissioner Stapleton in the burial may have led some to wonder if there was some sort of cover-up. The story was starting to garner the attention of not only Guthrie, but the surrounding communities as well. The next day, an answer to the accusations was published. From the Oklahoma Weekly Leader, Guthrie, Oklahoma, April 9, 1896. No inquest needed. Ella Meyers' associates were the cause of her hasty burial. Commissioner Stapleton says he is in no way responsible for the hasty burial of Ella Meyers, the Cyprian, who was found dead Sunday last in Ella Houston's place on the Santa Fe right-of-way. He says he issued an order for her burial as a pauper on authority of Coroner Barker, who, with Dr. Cotterill, examined the remains. The county undertaker, it seems, complied with the wishes of the inmates of the Houston place and buried the body at once. Dr. Barker says he gave an order for the burial of the body, which was badly decomposed, but had no idea that the undertaker would act so hastily. Dr. Cotterill does not credit the story that the body was buried alive. He says he applied the galvanic battery and, like Dr. Barker, thought an inquest was unnecessary, as it would simply heap expense on the county. The deceased was a cocaine fiend and died from an overdose, so the doctors say. This article was also published in the Crescent City Times of Crescent, Oklahoma. The story was growing. The reason for the hasty burial was given as a request from Ella's fellow prostitutes. It's interesting to note that the body was described as being badly decomposed, even though Ella's death was discovered in the morning and she was buried that same afternoon. Dr. Cotterill said that he applied the galvanic battery. A galvanic battery was an early and simple type of battery used to produce electricity. The use of the battery was considered to be a test to see if a person was actually dead. As described by J.B. Moody in 1900, the body that is insensible to physical appliances, as a galvanic battery, is a dead body. The article ended quite disparagingly towards Ella Meyers. The doctors did not want Ella's burial to heap expense on the county, and she was described as a cocaine fiend and died from an overdose. But even though the rumors had been answered by the authorities, the story of Ella Meyers would continue and grow even more disturbing. From the Oklahoma Weekly Leader, Guthrie, Oklahoma, April 16, 1896. Red hand appeared. House in which a Cyprian died, said to be haunted. The shack on the Santa Fe right-of-way, in which the Cyprian, Ella Meyers, recently died, is haunted. Horrible groans issue from the shack every night, and passerby assert that weird and ghastly incantations take place within the building, which was vacated shortly after the unfortunate girl's death. Last night, a well-known sport called at the house and tried the front door. It failed to give way. He tried the back door with the same result. And upon returning to the front door, it suddenly flew open, and a blood-red hand holding a vial appeared in the room. Much excitement prevails among the neighbors residing in the vicinity of the haunted house. This was the first time that Ella was described by the name Lula, and it may have been her nickname. We learn more specific details about the ghost of Ella Meyers in an article a few days later. From the Guthrie Daily Leader, Guthrie, Oklahoma, April 19, 1896. The ghost still walks. Ella Meyers haunts those who injured her. Is her body upside down? Judge McCord believes that an investigation will reveal some startling things. George Hardy's weird experience at the late home of the deceased Cyprian. A blood-red hand seen. The ghost of Ella Meyers continues to walk with uncanny tread at the erstwhile dive at the Santa Fe right-of-way. Last night at 12 o'clock, the doors of the house in which the girl is supposed to have died suddenly flew open, and a figure, clad in white, was seen at the windows. It is alleged that groans also issued from the hitherto locked house, and that 3 times a plaintive wail went up. Don't give me any morphine. I am sick. For over a week, supernatural manifestations in the house have aroused the neighborhood, and the shacks in the vicinity of the haunted dwelling have been vacated. On Friday night, George Hardy, thinking the story of the ghost a supreme josh, called at the house. He found the front door locked. Going to the back door, it was found locked and bolted. Hardy returned to the front door and was preparing to return, disgusted, to town, when a low, plaintive wail assailed his ears, and almost simultaneously the front door slowly swung open. Although badly rattled, Hardy entered the house. In the room where the Meyers girl died, he was struck 4 sharp raps on the head by an unseen hand, and at the same time a light, resembling a calcium ray, flashed across the ceiling of the room, and within the ray appeared a blood-red hand clutching a bottle or phial. Manifestations and ghostly seances, similar to those seen and heard by Hardy, have been experienced by 25 or 30 persons who visited the dwelling out of curiosity. Kickapoo Charlie visited the place on Thursday and was badly frightened. In fact, he fainted after seeing the apparition and has been ill ever since. Ex-police Judge McCord is considerably wrought up over the appearance of the astral body. He adheres to the belief that the Meyers girl was buried alive and that the body was chucked into a coarse box face downward. Policeman Poteet avers that the exhuming of the body of the unfortunate Cyprian will show that the body is distorted and twisted, and that the girl's ghost will haunt the colored undertaker and her associates as long as they live. The brother of the dead girl is in the city and will have the body disinterred and removed to Kansas for burial. James Whitman, the man who was with the Meyers girl the night she is supposed to have died, has not been seen since the burial. It is thought he knows more about the strange case than he tells. The word said to be spoken by the ghost, "Don't give me any morphine, I am sick," makes it seem that foul play was involved. The man last seen with Ella, James Whitman, is nowhere to be seen. The rumor that Ella was buried alive is still going strong, only it is added that she was buried face downward. The haunting was experienced by a large number of people. The article mentions between 25 and 30 people. The neighboring shacks have been abandoned out of fear of the haunting. We get the best description of the ghostly activity from George Hardy. In the room where the Meyers girl died, he was struck 4 sharp raps on the head by an unseen hand, and at the same time a light, resembling a calcium ray, flashed across the ceiling of the room, and within the ray appeared a blood-red hand clutching a bottle or phial. The calcium ray refers to calcium lights, which were early spotlights used in theaters that produced a brilliant white light. And so George Hardy witnessed a brilliant white light in which he saw a blood-red hand holding a bottle. Attention to the story of Ella Meyers was quickly growing, and other notable people of Guthrie were giving their opinion on the matter, specifically ex-police judge McCord and policeman Petit, and both seemed more sympathetic to Meyers' death. The news that Ella's brother was in the city and that he would move her body promised a solution to whatever was going on. From the Perry Democrat, Perry, Oklahoma, April 20th, 1896. And now who will answer for the burial of Ella Meyers alive at Guthrie last week? The prodigal young man who was in the room with her when she said, "Don't give me any more morphine, I am sick," has left the now haunted Cyprian Palace. The quote, "Don't give me any more morphine, I am sick," from the ghost haunting the shack, proved to people that Ella's death was less an accidental overdose and more akin to a murder. The disappearance of James Whitman only served to support this theory. Ella's mysterious past with outlaws, the quick decisions made by those in authority, all added to the suspicions about her death. The people of Guthrie waited for an ending to the strange story. From the weekly Oklahoma State Capitol, Guthrie, Oklahoma, April 22nd, 1896. Ella Meyers removed. Her half-brother reinters her body in Rose Hill Township, not buried alive. H.M. Meyers of Rose Hill this afternoon took up the remains of his half-sister, Ella Meyers, and will reinter them in Victor Cemetery near his farm. The coffin was opened and the corpse was in the exact position as when buried, dissipating the theory of a few that she had been buried alive. Mr. Meyers has been a state capitol subscriber for 5 years, and it was through this paper he got an idea the girl might be his half-sister, whose whereabouts he did not know. He brought photographs and soon found it was indeed his sister, identification being complete on opening the coffin. He says she was a sweet child when he saw her 4 years ago, as pure as an angel. He had heard nothing of her late adventurous life. She was 18 last September and the youngest of 8 children, being the child of his father's second wife. Mr. Meyers is an excellent citizen and was much grieved over the fate of this young girl. From the Oklahoma Weekly Leader, Guthrie, Oklahoma, April 23rd, 1896. No more ghost. The remains of Ella Meyers exhumed and found right side up. The remains of Ella Meyers, whose ghost is said to have haunted the late home of the deceased on the Santa Fe right-of-way, were exhumed yesterday by H.M. Meyers, half-brother of the deceased, and taken to Rose Hill Township for interment. Mr. Meyers was ignorant of the death of his sister until he read an account of the haunted house in the Leader last week. The coffin was opened and the body was found in proper position. It is intimated that the girl was not only buried alive, but that the body was placed in the rough box face downward. But since the recent comment regarding her burial, interested parties secretly disinterred the remains and placed them in their natural position. This story was also carried in the Weekly Democrat newspaper of Perry, Oklahoma. With the removal of Ella Meyers' body from the pauper's grave by her half-brother, the haunting stopped. Rumors of a conspiracy surrounding her death would not go away. As the ending of the article printed, it is intimated that the girl was not only buried alive, but that the body was placed in the rough box face downward. But since the recent comments regarding her burial, interested parties secretly disinterred the remains and placed them in their natural position. No matter what had actually happened, Ella Meyers was now with a member of her family. From the Guthrie Daily Leader, Guthrie, Oklahoma, April 24th, 1896. The body of Ella Meyers, which was taken from the pauper graveyard, as stated in yesterday's leader, was decently buried yesterday afternoon in Mulhall Cemetery. On April 5th, Ella Meyers had been found dead in the small shack near the railroad tracks. On April 23rd, Ella was finally laid to rest in a proper cemetery. It had not even been a month, but in that time, the entire town of Guthrie, along with the surrounding communities, had been fascinated with the story of her death and her haunting. Even after her burial, the story was still shared in at least one newspaper. From the Tahlequah Arrow, Tahlequah, Oklahoma, April 25th, 1896. A Guthrie Ghost Story. Guthrie, Oklahoma Territory, April 23rd. There is much excitement over the alleged haunting of the house in which Ella Meyers, the unfortunate girl from Pueblo, Colorado, was found dead 2 weeks ago. The inmates have all moved out because of fear, and neighbors say the girl's spirit appears every night and can be seen wandering about the house, moaning and crying for help. Friday night, 6 men watched to solve the mystery, but when the apparition appeared, were too frightened to act. Last night, over a score of men and several policemen remained in the house, and when the strange thing appeared, made a rush for it, but could secure nothing, although everyone saw a woman in white, with blood-red hands, moving about, and distinctly heard the moans. There are rumors that the girl was not dead when found, but was buried alive. Her brother arrived from Colorado today and will have the body exhumed from the potter's field tomorrow. An examination will be made and decent burial accorded the remains. Although the Tahlequah Arrow was late in publishing the news of Ella Meyers, new information could be learned from this article. It was published that Ella had a stepmother in Colorado. This article specifically lists Pueblo, Colorado as the place Ella had come from. We know that 2 large groups of people had investigated the haunting of the shack, to no avail. One night, 6 men had gathered to investigate, but became too frightened. Another night, over 20 men, including several policemen, had attempted to discover what was going on, but even after rushing the ghost, couldn't grab onto anything of substance. It seemed that everyone was convinced that this was indeed the ghost of Ella Meyers. We are left with 2 questions. What really happened to Ella Meyers? And was her ghost actually haunting the shack near the railroad? Both are connected to each other. The hasty burial may have only been a desire on the part of Ella Houston and the other prostitutes to quickly remove Ella's body from where they worked, and the desire of the authorities to save money and save the reputation of the town. It wouldn't look good in the press that the territorial capital of Oklahoma not only had prostitution, but that the prostitutes were dying from drug usage. If this was the case, then it quickly backfired, as the haunting of the shack not only stopped all business there, but the story grew and grew until a good part of Oklahoma knew about it. The most distinguishable parts of the ghost story are the supposed words of Ella Meyers, "Don't give me any more morphine, I am sick," and the blood-red hand holding a bottle, both of which reinforce the use of drugs in the story. The quote shows that Ella Meyers was given drugs against her will. The blood-red hand holding a bottle is the image the ghost wanted people to witness. But the haunting only followed after the rumor spread that something wrong happened with her burial. Either she was buried alive, upside down, or both. I think it shows that even at the beginning of the story, people felt guilty about what had happened to Ella. Prostitution was a big part of frontier communities, but it was a part that people didn't want to talk about. The death of Ella Meyers made people discuss it. It also made people discuss the use of drugs in the community and the shame of burying people in a pauper cemetery. So, was it actually Ella's ghost haunting the shack? There were too many people involved for it to be a simple lie. The experiences of 25 to 30 people, or maybe even more, cannot be swept aside as a fabrication. Plus, the people in the surrounding shacks vacated their properties. The fear was very real. The only other explanation was that it was a very, very well-made theatrical performance. We know that the other prostitutes cared for Ella. They attended her first burial. One or more of them would have had access, or easily gained access, to the small shack. It's possible one or more of them dressed the part, brought in a bright light of some sort to produce the calcium rays, and shocked the people who came to investigate. If this was the case, then it's extraordinary that no one was caught, as large groups of people came into the small shack. Why would they do this? Maybe to close down Ella Houston's brothel business? Maybe the prostitutes saw that what had happened to Ella could easily happen to any of them, that their fate was to be quickly chucked aside in a hole with nobody around to care. Maybe that was the only way to get enough attention for Ella to be properly buried. If you believe in ghosts, then this theory may seem silly. If you don't believe in ghosts, then what other possibility is left? This story is incredible, but without it, nobody would know the name of Ella Meyers and the life she lived.